Welcome to Spectrum Sphere, your portal to a diverse world of discovery. Today, we delve into the Prohibition Era, a time of crime and social upheaval in America. From the roaring 20s to the rise of underground speakeasies, we'll uncover how good intentions can lead to unexpected consequences. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to join our community for more thought-provoking content. The Prohibition Era, which began in 1920, was defined by the 18th Amendment and the Volstead Act. The amendment banned the manufacture, sale, and transportation of intoxicating liquors, while the act provided the federal government with the means to enforce this drastic change in American policy and lifestyle. Prohibition was rooted in a desire to better society and clamp down on crime. Advocates believed that banning alcohol would curb social issues such as domestic violence, improve health, and reduce criminal activity. This ambitious social experiment aimed to purify the nation and promote temperance across the United States. Almost immediately after Prohibition took effect, the consumption of alcohol didn't cease. It simply moved from the public eye into the shadows. Legal businesses shuttered, and people lost jobs, especially in the brewing and distilling industries. Meanwhile, illegal alcohol distribution networks began to surface, laying the groundwork for widespread defiance. As Prohibition took effect, alcohol didn't vanish. It merely went underground. Bootlegging emerged as a booming illicit enterprise. Secretive speakeasies replaced pubs and bars, becoming hidden havens for those seeking a drink. This clandestine world was rife with risks, from poor quality spirits to police raids, yet it thrived in the Prohibition shadows. The curtain of Prohibition descended heavily on breweries and distilleries. Industries once thriving across the nation faced an abrupt standstill. Jobs vanished as legal operations shuttered, and the economic ripple was felt widely. Many sought the shadows for sustenance, transforming legitimate enterprises into clandestine operations to survive the dry spell. As Prohibition took hold, the quintessential American social landscape was transformed. Bars and saloons closed, and in turn, private drinking within the secretive confines of homes and illegal speakeasies flourished. This shift not only changed where people drank, but it altered the very nature of social interaction and communal leisure. To enforce Prohibition, the government established the Prohibition Bureau, but with inadequate staffing and meager resources, agents struggled against rampant illegal operations. Despite the introduction of severe penalties for violations, the widespread desire for alcohol and the cunning of bootleggers presented a seemingly insurmountable challenge to law enforcement. While the government waged a war against illegal alcohol, the public didn't comply quietly. Ordinary citizens, once law-abiding, now found themselves on the wrong side of the law, seeking speakeasies and underground suppliers. This resistance sparked a societal shift, blurring the lines between criminal acts and social norms. As Prohibition throttled the legal sale of alcohol, an unintended consequence took shape: the rise of powerful organized crime syndicates. These groups seized the lucrative opportunity to traffic alcohol, generating immense profits and expanding their criminal empires, which presented a new, formidable challenge to law enforcement. Al Capone, a name synonymous with crime in Prohibition-era America, led the notorious Chicago outfit. Capone's empire, built on the illegal bootlegging of alcohol, turned into a multi-million-dollar operation. His influence extended into politics and law enforcement, allowing his criminal network to thrive with seeming impunity amidst a thirsty nation. The illegal alcohol trade inevitably escalated into violence. Bloody turf wars between rival gangs became a grim reality as they vied for control of the lucrative bootlegging market. Such conflict reached its peak in events like the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, showcasing the deadly stakes of this underground industry. As Prohibition persisted, law enforcement faced immense challenges. Officers were outnumbered and often outgunned by well-organized crime rings. Judicial systems, burdened by bribery and intimidation, struggled to impart justice. Corruption seeped its way into the very institutions meant to uphold the law, further complicating an already tumultuous social landscape. In this turbulent era, women's roles evolved significantly. Spearheading the temperance movement, they were pivotal in championing for prohibition, driven by a desire to combat alcohol's destructive impact on families and society. Their activism not only shaped policy, but also marked a growing influence in public life and politics. Prohibition had profound reverberations throughout American culture and society. It inadvertently stoked a cultural revolution, igniting a wave of jazz-infused speakeasies that became hotbeds for social progress. Meanwhile, the law's limitations fueled an irony as the quest for sobriety led to a more indulgent underground nightlife. As Prohibition tightened its grip, a wave of ingenuity swept through the shadows. Bootleggers deployed advanced smuggling methods, from hidden compartments in vehicles to complex underground tunnels, outwitting law enforcement at every turn. These technological innovations became a testament to the lengths people will go when faced with restrictive laws. Meanwhile, the media played a pivotal role in shaping public perception, casting notorious figures like Al Capone as modern-day Robin Hoods. This romanticizing of gangsters created a paradoxical culture where, despite their illicit activities, these outlaws became icons of the era's rebellious spirit, embedded deep within America's cultural lore. In the clandestine world of speakeasies, jazz music found a vibrant home, igniting a cultural revolution. These hidden hubs of social defiance were breeding grounds for creative expression, where the prohibition of alcohol paradoxically fueled a spirited freedom that defied the stifling regulations of the period. The ban on legitimate alcohol production ushered in a surge of dangerous, unregulated bootleg spirits. Without government oversight, the quality of alcohol plummeted, leading to widespread health issues. People suffered from poisoning due to toxic substances used in these illicit brews, reflecting a grim side effect of well-intentioned prohibition policies. As Prohibition wore on, it became clear that strict enforcement was untenable. America saw significant changes in legal policies and law enforcement, adapting to the underworld of crime that Prohibition birthed. The government had to reconsider its strategies, leading to new forms of policing and amendments in laws to tackle this unprecedented wave of illegality. One stark turning point was the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1929. Where 7 members of Chicago's North Side gang were brutally gunned down. This event shocked the nation and underscored the reality that Prohibition had escalated rather than curbed violence, ultimately swaying public opinion against the Prohibition-era policies. Following the unrest and growing crime, a political shift began to stir. Citizens and lawmakers alike started to question the efficacy of Prohibition. This burgeoning doubt gave rise to the repeal movement, as more people became convinced that the legislation was causing more harm than the problem it intended to solve. As the Great Depression tightened its grip on America, economic despair added fuel to the fire of prohibition opposition. The dire need for job creation and tax revenue from alcohol sales became clear, creating a powerful argument that would sway public opinion and policy toward the repeal of the 18th Amendment. Finally, in 1933, the tide turned with the ratification of the 21st Amendment, which effectively repealed the 18th. This pivotal moment marked the end of Prohibition, reintroducing legal alcohol to the American populace and closing a tumultuous chapter in the nation's history. But Prohibition's legacy endured, profoundly shaping both the American legal system and societal norms. The era catalyzed the formation of powerful law enforcement agencies, while also embedding a lasting skepticism about the effectiveness of prohibitive laws. Society's relationship with alcohol had been indelibly transformed, influencing future generations' attitudes and legislation. The failure of Prohibition offered a stark lesson in the complexities of legislating human behavior. It highlighted how laws that go against the prevailing social desires can lead to unintended consequences, such as the rise of organized crime. It reminds us that for legislation to be effective, it must reflect societal values and realities. Now, as we examine modern policies aimed at prohibiting substances, we can draw direct comparisons to the Prohibition era. Despite our technological advances and historical hindsight, the war on drugs echoes similar patterns, raising the question, have we truly learned from history, or are we destined to repeat it? The Prohibition era's shadow looms large over today's debates surrounding drug legalization. Proponents argue for regulation and safety, while opponents fear increased abuse and societal harm. These discussions highlight the complexity of managing substance use within a society, a challenge that remains as contentious now as it was a century ago. As we reflect on the legacy of the Prohibition era, it's clear that its intentions and outcomes are deeply intertwined with the America of today. The era serves as a case study in unintended consequences, illustrating how policy can shape society and, in turn, how society can influence the course of law and order. In closing, the Prohibition era teaches us valuable lessons about crime and social change. Despite noble intentions, Prohibition often exacerbates problems, creating fertile ground for illicit activities and organized crime, ultimately leading to more social upheaval. These historical insights guide us in shaping more effective policies today. Thank you for exploring the Prohibition era with Spectrum Sphere. We've seen how well-intended laws can lead to unintended consequences. If you've enjoyed this dive into history and its impact on society, please give us a like and hit subscribe for more diverse discoveries every week.